Greetings, my name is Phil Mormon. I'm the Commodore at the Britannia Yacht Club. BYC is celebrating its 135th anniversary this year, a fantastic year of celebrations and enjoyment of our history and our future that's to come. The Sailing Club started as an effort by local cottagers to put together a club to celebrate their love of rowing and to provide a venue for socializing and entertainment. The club has evolved into an amazing venue for world-class sailors, for a very vibrant youth learn to sail program and a youth racing program, as well as a variety of other social and entertainment activities. What you're about to see are stories from BYC members talking about some of the things that have been noteworthy and have been celebrated over the years. Enjoy.
You're on.
I'm on. Hi, my name is Beverly Brown. I've been a member here since 1935, spending most of my time sailing.
Whatever.
The kid sister of Bruce Kirby, who's well known in these parts and around the world as the designer of the laser dinghy.
I wanted to tell you now about how we used to handle putting boats in and out of the water before we had a crane, or before we hired a construction crane. The boat yard used to be on the side lawn of the club, beside the tennis courts, and the marine railway ran on tracks just about where the path is now, beside the tennis courts, and down into the water in front. And the problem was, of course, is when you get the boats in the water, it's not bad, you're going downhill, but in the fall, and it comes to taking them out, it was a problem. And it was done by the members. You want to take your boat out of the water, you go around the club and say, hey, will you give me a hand? And you might get 10 or 15 people. And it was like a tug of war. They pulled the boat up the hill. The boat was put on a cradle in the water, and the cradle was on the truck that came with the marine railway. It was quite a job sometimes, and when Tom Fuller brought blackjack to the club, it was darn near impossible because it was just too heavy. He started one year taking it out with his car. He attached his car to the thing, and he burned out the motor in his car trying to do it. So then he arrived later on with a motor from an Otis elevator. He was renovating a building downtown and brought the motor here and built a little, I guess you'd call it a shed, at the side of the club, and the motor was kept in there to keep it out of the rain. The task of getting the boats out became much easier. I do recall one time when the boats were being put in, somehow or other a rock got on the rails.
Out in the water, and somebody was in his boat on the truck, and they let it go to run down into the water. Of course, it hit this rock and stopped like I don't know what.
And stopped dead. And the boat and the fellow shot out, catapulted out towards the pier, much to the delight of the people on shore.
In the old way.
Lodging in the old way.
Not like you do today.
It was always fun, because there's always something happening.
My name's Quentin. I've been a member here since I was a year old, and I'm now harbor staff for our yacht club. My story is about the first 100-miler I ever did running the boat. I was 15 years old, and at the time I was sailing with a bunch of my friends I had met in junior sailing when I was about 8, 9 years old, and we were given the boat 2 days before the race.
And Al Mallow had kindly lent us his old Kirby 25 Skid Bladner to let us sail, and the boat hadn't been sailed all year, and we're getting out to the start line, and none of the electrics work on the boat. We have no compass, no radio, nothing.
And we start the race, going great, going really well.
First two guys go down below and find out that all of our food is spoiled, and that the only thing that we have left is a few waters and some old pizza in the boat. And going through the night, a few members who were sailing that night may remember that we got into a good argument on our boat, and it resulted in air horns and a lot of fun. And we never actually finished the race. We had thunderstorms, but all I remember was that the whole time, as miserable as it was, everyone was having a great time. And I really just want more people to come out and sail. Thank you.
That's great.
Awesome.
Very uplifting story.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Roll it.
Well, good evening. My name is Dennis Foy. I've been a member of the Britannia Yacht Club all my life. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I have a story for you. Back in 1920, there was a race called the Armitage Race, and they used to go up small wooden boats with no accommodations and sleep overnight. The tents, which were canvas tents, were pitched on the beach, or on the grove, I guess, and they would party and have a few beers, sing songs in the evening, and then at night they would have to be separated, because back in the day that's what they did. The boys stayed in tents on the left, the women stayed in tents on the right, and Ma Kirby would chaperone the event. Sometime through the night there might be a ruckus in the kitchen tent, and she would go and check that out. Meanwhile, she's in the tent. The male and the female people would disappear out the back of these other tents, and possibly we have some new members and some good family history going on through that. The next morning they would get up and make their coffee and whatever, bacon and eggs and everything, but they needed some milk, so they would go down to the beach. The farmer next door had some cows. They would get a cow, and they would milk the cow for the cream for their coffee. In the meantime, some of the gentlemen would try to ride the cow. So that's our story, and that brings us from the past up to the present, which is Baskins Beach Memorial Park. So if you need any more information, please call.
You're on.
Alright.
Rolling.
Hello, my name is David O'Sullivan. I've been a lifelong member here at Britannia Yacht Club. And the story I'm about to tell today is about sailing a shark sailboat in the Canadian Championships in 2015 out of Brockville Yacht Club. With me that day, and for all my Crazy Ivan time in that shark boat, was David and Jamie Foy. Two phenomenal brother sailors who are lifelong members here at Britannia Yacht Club as well. So here we are, we're in Brockville, we're on the St. Lawrence. There's lots of waves and there's lots of current. And we're sitting in second place with 20 points. So here we are, we're starting to go up the first windward leg, and disaster strikes. Our jib halyard block at the top of the mast breaks, and our head sail comes crashing down onto the deck. Even though the head sail crashed down to the deck, we were able to quickly take our spinnaker halyard, tie it back onto the Genoa, and then hoist that up and continue racing. We did give up a boat, so now we're sitting in second place, so that's fine. So we got up to the windward mark, and now we have to switch the halyard from the head sail to the spinnaker, so which means we've got to drop our head sail, go slow, tie on the halyard back on the spinnaker, and hoist it up, and then continue racing. So we had to do the same sort of thing down at the windward mark, and then of course again at the windward mark. So we're coming down the last windward leg, and we're now debating and talking about what we have to do to fix this situation. And the best solution we could come up with was, we're going to have to drop the rig in the middle of the St. Lawrence and jury rig a new block at the top of the mast, and then put the rig back up. So we get across the finish line, and now the clock starts. It's a race against time, because current is going to sweep us all the way down, away from the start line. So we had to act fast. We de-rigged the boom, de-rigged the sails, and dropped the mast. We finally finally get the block on, we get the rig up, we get the boom back on, we get the sails re-rigged, and hoist the sails, and I just look at the guys and I say, boys, we are flat out racing from here to the start line. And that start line was easily a 15-minute sail back up the So we all jump on the rail, we're calling puffs, we're calling wind shifts, we're calling waves, we're doing everything we're supposed to do to sail fast. We sail for another 2 or 3 minutes. We have maybe about 2 minutes left on the start timer. And now we're starting to think, wow, we might actually make the start line on time and going well. So now we've got about a minute left, and it really looks like we're going to hit the start line perfectly. And as luck would have it, it was like the parting of the Red Seas. A hole opens up beautifully right at the leeward end of the start line where we needed to be able to head left, hit the American shore out of the current, attack on the first ship, and sure enough, we hit the line at full speed, at go, right on the line in a perfect hole designed just for us, and we finished that race about a half leg lead over the second place boat. And we went on to win the regatta and the next 3 races, and it was again one of my most favorite memories from that regatta. What I take from that is, as you say, perseverance, a never quit kind of attitude. We always knew we could sail well. We always knew that we always had a fighting chance. If we could just gave ourselves a chance, we knew we could do it. And sure enough, we did.
All right, thanks. That's great.
All right, you're on.
Hi, my name is John Irvin. I'm a longtime member, 40 plus years, mostly sailing, but some windsurfing in the distant past. I want to tell you about how the Moore Island race got turned into Margarita Weekend. I was sailing on Sugar Pie. The year was 1991. We decided we wanted to have some margaritas. So what I did was I took the top half of a blender, the bottom half was a 12-volt electric drill, and we used that as a blender and made margaritas for the crew. That tradition continues almost 30 years later, and it's lots of fun. Welcome to BYC Stories. Well, I'll tell you the story and you can decide. We were delivering Busted Flush when she was brand new.
Yeah.
And we left Niagara in the afternoon, figuring we'd have a nice downwind cruise. And after we're about 2 hours out, and we got caught in the line of thunderstorms that we could not escape from, and we spent 36 hours locked into these thunderstorms, winds over 60 knots.
Wow.
The whole Windex went off the roof of the boat, and several of us were quite shaken up. And I salute the late John Norton, who was the skipper who kept us all in one piece. I've got pictures of Landsberg and me with hematomas across the entire backsides just from me slammed into the bulkheads.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
awful.
Well, I'll edit that bit out.
So hello, my name is Karen Johnson, and I've been a member of the Britannia Yacht Club for about 20 years. When I began here, well, I wasn't thinking of coming here at all. I thought that my place was Nepean, because Nepean, of course, has the Able Sail program. But then one time, Britannia was hosting Northern Magic, and if you remember the story of Northern Magic, it was of the Sumer family that sailed around the world. Diane unfortunately died, and after her death, they came here to celebrate, and to celebrate her life and their achievements, and to raise money for cancer. And I was going to sail from Nepean on that day but I wasn't allowed to take the Little Martin out. So I came and lined up and just said to anyone who would listen, "Hello, I need a boat to go out on." And Rudy said, "Yes, of course." I forget the name of his boat. "You can come with me." So I thought, isn't this wonderful? Already I've been invited. It's quite amazing how I got in. And so out we went. We had a wonderful day until the motor stopped. And then I had to find another boat. And so Abracadabra invited me. So somehow, even with my disability, I managed to get from Rudy's boat to Abracadabra. And I thought, this is an amazing place. I want to belong here. And I must say that my whole time here has been one of acceptance and just accommodation. We may not have had the elevator until a few years ago, but I've always felt accommodated. So one day I was rather skittish, and Linda Lorm said to me, "You've got to just go over to any table. Go over to any table and introduce yourself." So I did, and lo and behold, it was Al. And before you know it, I was invited out on his boat. And so again, accommodations were made, and I looked like a snake, and getting in and out of the boat was somewhat of a dilemma some days. But again, I went sailing. And what really attracted me to the club were the Browns, because they were membership directors when I became a member, and they said they wanted to make sure that my membership needs were met. So they used to take people out on Wednesday nights. So I went out, even before I joined the club, I went out, this kind of backwards, but I went out on Maple Leaf with them, and they wanted to make sure that I was okay, and I was in heaven. So every Wednesday I was lined up, because they took people out every Wednesday. I was the only one, but I would have been lined up if there were people, and I got out, and it was wonderful. And then one time I went up to Baskin, because I wanted the whole experience of sailing up to Baskin.
Right.
So Mike Fanny took me, and that was more of a jumping out of the boat into a dinghy. So everyone was there going, "Okay, Karen, you can do it, you can do it." And I did it, and I'm here to tell about it. I drove home, though. I did not get back into the boat. I don't think there would have been a way. Just like the wind and in my hair and the water and the company, and it's all been wonderful. So thank you, Britannia.
Kick off whenever you want.
Hi, my name is Mike Fahmy. I've been member in this club since 2000. My main activity is race during the week and the weekends. Sailing is my hobby here. My story is about, if you do something good in your life, you get the reward almost immediately. So the story starts when I told the manager of the club, if somebody is in distress or have a trouble on the lake, call me, and I can always help. So it didn't take long. He called me. I said, "Oh, there is a boat that lost its steering near Elmer Island. Can you go and help?" I said, "I think I can." So I took my boat and motored to the Elmer Island, and to my great surprise, I found that in distress was a big motor boat of about 50 to 55 feet long, with 3 couples on them cheering me, "Hey, the saver." And I look at the size of the boat and the weight of the boat. I said, no, how can my 13 horsepower engine pull that? Anyway, I said, "I give it a try," and I told him this will be the slowest time your boat will be moving on the water. And I pulled the boat. It took me about probably 2.5 hours to pull that boat from Elmer Island to the club. And just a week later, I was on upriver race, and I got stuck in a rock near Constance Bay. No way I could get myself out. And here comes a small motorboat Dad said, are you in trouble? You need help? I said, oh yes, I need help badly. Send me a line. And he pulled me out. So I could see that I did something good, and the reward was soon after, just a week after, somebody helped me. So this is my story, and I encourage everybody to do something good because there's always a reward. Thank you.
That's great, Mike. Thank you very much.
I can't repeat that. It's one shot.
Yeah. Whenever you want.
Okay. My name is Paul Skeen. I've been a member more recently for about 15 years, and as a child from about 60 years ago. And my story is about growing up at Britannia, and on a particular day, literally growing up. I was sailing with my parents on a smaller fiberglass cruiser in 1968. It was a nice August afternoon, many boats out on the river, and unlike today, there weren't great forecasts as to the weather. And a very dark cloud came down the river, hit us full on. My father, being ex-Air Force, actually pulled sails down and realized that this was going to be a serious squall. So serious that we actually sank in the boat.
It knocked us over on our side, the cockpit filled with water, the boat went down in about 5 minutes, and we were 3 people treading water in the widest part of Lake Deschênes.
He, before the boat went down, lined up 3 telephone towers in Aylmer at the time and knew exactly where the boat had gone down. And as the club is today, they have great personnel and care for each other, and they sent a boat out immediately just to look for people in trouble. Sadly, 3 people drowned that day. Other boats sank. We very fortunately were rescued. I had not a life jacket on. I was trying to put one on, and it got ripped off by winds which they figured were 90 to 100 miles an hour. Trees were uprooted. An Austin Mini was actually moved back at the club. I was probably in shock, got picked up by the boat, brought into the harbor. Again, the community of Britannia was great. They
Brought us in, and a very kind English gentleman gave me a shot of whiskey. And I was 15, and it stopped me shaking and calmed me down, and I've never looked back. I still like Scotch.
Apropos, the Blackjack and Tom Fuller Sr. at the time came out using my dad's bearings on where he'd seen the boat go down. They dragged for it. They found the mast. It was about 3 feet below water, and they brought the boat up and pumped it out, and there was no damage, a lot of mud. And I remember my mom saying they found a radish stuck in the very bow of the boat. Current had brought it down. So, happy ending.
All right.
That's my story. I still enjoy sailing, and I was out a couple of weeks ago and we had a similar squall, not quite as strong. But anyway, just be happy and safe on the water, and enjoyed speaking to you, and happy birthday, Britannia.
That's great. Good story. I mean, scary story.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Carrie Hayes. I've been a member at BYC for 20 years, and I'm proud to say that I raised both my sons here, and they are both still sailors at BYC, Nick and Quinton. My main activity at the club obviously is sailing. When I started, I did some racing, and now I'm basically a weekend cruiser, and I try to get out during the week and do some sailing. My story, and I have many, but I've picked one, is about a storm that we encountered, my partner Trevor and I, probably, I'd say 2 summers ago. And Trevor's a relatively new sailor, 10 years, so we were having this discussion about, here's what's going to happen. Weather always comes down the river. We were at Pinny's Point, east wind, so we knew something was coming. And he said, look, there's too many boats here. We're hanging out. Let's go to Baskins. Okay, off we go. Enjoyed the east wind, sailed the Baskins. Threw the hook, it was about supper time. So I said, let's get dinner going and be sure we check the gas before dinner, because if it comes, we got to be prepared. We didn't really get to checking the gas. So we sat down to dinner, and within maybe 10 minutes, there was just a wall coming down the river. So, food, dishes in the sink, start the motor. Before we could start the motor, we'd run aground. So Trev got up on the bow, trying to pull up the anchor, gave it on the motor, came off the rock we'd obviously gotten stuck on. He went forward, cut his leg, got the anchor up, and by this point, like, I'm looking up the river going, there's no way we can beat that front. It's coming. Just a wall, right? We're going to try. So the plan was, that we discussed at dinner, if we get caught, we go to Port of Call. Safest place. So out we go, full on throttle, looking behind us, and I'm just looking at Trevor saying, we're not going to make it. We get right to the mouth of Port of Call, and if you've been there, and most people here have, it's just like a rock entrance. And the waves were huge, and I'm blasting the motor, and the waves were so high, and we didn't have enough gas, that the motor started sucking air in the gas tank, and dies. Right in the entrance to Port of Call. And I just looked at him and went, and he started pointing where there was an open dock, and I thought, okay, I don't know how hard we're going to come in, but we're coming in. There's nothing we can do. When we got through the mouth of the harbor, of course, everything was calmer. I thought, why don't I try it?
So I pushed the auto start, the motor started. It was like, thank you. Put in reverse, just revved it in reverse, and landed beautifully on a dock. All hell broke loose. Like hail and wind, and we were soaking, but we were safe, and we spent the night there, and it was probably one of our better experiences of learning how to survive on the river.
Anyway, so do you have a story about going down the rapids?
Yes, yes. This would have taken place, it could have been 1960, not after that, I know that, or it could be a couple of years before 1960. It was regular race night, and the boats were all jockeying around out in front when a line squall went through, and all hell broke loose. Most of the boats survived quite okay. A lot of the dinghies dumped, but one boat in particular couldn't clear the head of the rapids, and down they went. And they were trying to put their anchor out, and the anchor kept dragging. Anyway, they were down about 3/4 of the way when the anchor caught.
It would have been better had it had not caught, and they would have gone right through, but it caught, and they were stuck in the rapids. Then Negark, was quite a large boat belonging to the Foy brothers,
decided to see what they could do to help with the situation. So a gang got on board, and off they went over to the head of the rapids, and they put their anchor out, and the idea was that they would try and lower a dinghy down and try and get it in contact with the boat so that the people could climb in. There were 2 children on board, and if they climbed in, they could pull them back up. It was like a comedy of errors. Jack Hall had climbed up the mast, and he was standing on the spreaders so that he could try and guide the boat down into its spot. And unfortunately, just at that point, the anchor gave way, and the boat slipped and went down another 20 feet or so, and then caught again, stopped dead, and Jack was catapulted into the rapids. And everybody was having a fit at this point, but he had a life jacket on, and he was very smart in that he turned and went feet first, so that if he hit bottom, it was his feet and not his head. And he came out the bottom of the rapids and was picked up by a fisherman down there and taken ashore, and got his way back to the club. And as the night went on, he was rather thankful that that little trip had happened. So the others tried and tried, and They couldn't get their boat. The next thing we knew, a helicopter had arrived. I don't remember who phoned, but a helicopter was sent up from Trenton, and the helicopter circled round and round, and they wanted to lower something down, but they were worried about the rigging and things getting caught, and it didn't work. They abandoned that, and then someone called again for. They called it a jet boat, but so a lot of thought was put into the best way to look after that. And finally they decided to come up from the bottom of the rapids, which they did, and they came alongside the boat, and the people climbed in, and they were brought ashore, and the boat was left to sit there for a bit while they figured out what to do. But in the meantime, the Kneegark, full of club members, was again about halfway down the rapids because it was stuck there as well. If my memory serves me correctly, what happened is that after the people were off the sailboat,
somebody cut the anchor line, and it just went the rest of the way down, and I don't remember how it was brought ashore, somewhere along the parkway, lifted with a crane, put on a truck and brought back to the club. And as far as Kneegark goes, it was very similar. I don't think they took the fellows off. I think they just cut the anchor line and let it go. She was pulled out with a crane down along the parkway and brought back to the club. But it was quite an eventful night. Nobody died, no, it all came out, nobody was hurt. It all turned out fine, but it was, it made the front page of the paper. In fact, it made a full page in the paper with pictures, the whole works. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the stories.
Great.
Hi, my name is Al Mallow. I've been a member here since 1983 officially. My main activity would be racing, but I'm also now currently on the board of directors as the harbour master. My story is about the famous Hurricane 100. One evening in the summer of 2007, I was holding up the Dragon Bar after having had maybe more than one glass of wine, and I was approached by a couple of guys, young lads. I don't know if their question, first I thought it was a joke. They said to me, you have a boat you're not using, we'd like to borrow it to do the 100-miler. They're referring to my Kirby 25, which is the boat I bought in 1983, and we had a lot of fun on this boat. That all ended in 1994 when I accepted a job overseas, but I didn't have time to sell the boat. But the two members of my crew who had a cruising vessel had decided to sell their boat. So they said, well, don't worry about it, Al, we'll sell your boat for you. You know, we're already selling one, why not sell two? They sold theirs, but they never did manage to sell mine. So every year I'd come back, visit family, and I would check the cover, put a new cover on. And so I was back at the club, and I had this boat under the cover, and I said, well, I'm going to get back into racing. So you can imagine when the boys asked to borrow the boat, so I agreed. I said, you know, we've got to get the boat back in shape and you're going to have to do the work, and they said, no problem. So we spent about 3 weeks and until we had the boat ready to sail. I gave them every sail that my friends had stored for me in their basement over those years. I think there was maybe a dozen sails. I was sailing my own CNC 33 because after I had given up the idea of racing, I had bought a cruising boat. We all decided to take the CNC on the 100-miler. Typically at night, the winds are going to drop. I'm going to need more than a number 3. While we still have light, let's change up to the number 1. So we put up the number 1. So I think we're getting close to Port of Call. In the distance we could see the lights of the Kirby, and all of a sudden it looked like it had borne off quite a bit, because instead of going upriver, we're going across river. So we're scratching our heads wondering what the heck's going on when all of a sudden we get hit by this microburst. Must have been 40 to 50 knots. We were knocked right over with a number 1 up. And it was pitch black. And my crew were more in the party mode than in the sailing mode. I had to turn on the engine because we couldn't see what we were doing. I had to put the boat head to wind. And we struggled to furl the number 1 up. And then having turned on the engine, I said, okay, that's it. Our race is done, we're going back to the harbor. It was howling. And we weren't the only ones. There were several other boats pulled out at the same time, and we could hear them but couldn't see them. It was pitch black. We got back in the harbor and we tied up at the gas dock because we weren't going any further than that. And the adrenaline was running pretty high, and a couple boats tied up with us, and we broke out our food and our adult beverages and had a party. I got up to a scene of looked like Pirates of the Caribbean. I had my number 1 was in tatters, streaming in the wind, and going, well, that sail's done. So later on in the afternoon, a few of us put up the number 3 and decided to go upriver looking for the boys to see if they were still sailing. They looked a little bit the worse for wear, but they were still determined to finish. So we headed back to the harbor and they went back upriver. It turns out that when the microburst hit, the boys were flying the chute. That's why they had to bear off. They got the sails down, threw out the anchor. There's rumors that one of them actually went for a swim. And these young bucks were probably better at boat handling than the rest of us. They survived. I don't know which one of them might have gone for a swim. So later the next day, the boys finished the race. They pulled up to the gas dock with shit grins on their faces, and they were photographed by Linda McBurney. So I provided the photo. There was one lesson to be learned from this race, well, many of them. You always need to be prepared for bad weather, even on this small body of water called Lac du Chêne. You need to be able to handle, you need your crew to be able to handle sails in an emergency, and the skipper has to be better prepared than I was to anticipate the weather, although we didn't have the radar on our phones like we do today. But you always need to know what you should be doing in a situation like that, and remember that your anchor is your best friend. During the race, they'd blown out every head sail that I had given them. I was now left with a boat that could be raced but had no sails. So I bought a new set of sails, and then Skid Bladner sailed for many years in BYC after that. But that's another story. So finally, at the awards banquet, the boys who had now become known as the Wild Boys collected their trophy, and I provided a photo, and you'll see the guys in the photo on the back row: Andrew Fury, Anders Haglund, and Sam Fuller, and on the front row, Tom Arbuckle and Rob Hemming. So that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you around the club.
Great.
Okay, you're on.
Hi, I'm Rob Brayton. I've been a member here since I'm 4 years old, so that makes about 61 years, or more or less. I thought I'd tell a couple of stories about sailing and 100 milers. Once when I was a teenager, I was just one of the crew on a boat, and we're light winds once again. It's always the light wind stories, you know, when you're not paying attention to anything else. We're going up the river, and it was dark, it was nighttime, and we're going up along the Quebec shore between Elmer Island and Penny's Point. Drifting along, we start to hear some singing coming up ahead of us, and we get closer and closer, and we realize that there's Maple Leaf out there, and she's hard aground in the mud, and I think she must have just drifted ever so slowly and come to a stop in the mud, and the guys on board had no idea they'd stopped. They're singing, they're drinking, and they're having a great time. They had no idea. We just sort of sailed past them. But it was sort of part and parcel for the 100 milers. You're sailing all night long, and on a Saturday morning would be the beginning of duck hunting season in the fall, and you'd be going up the river in all your spinnakers, and as soon as the sun came up, duck hunting season opened, and there would be some shots, and all the boats would be sneaking along the shore, all turn and suddenly come back into the middle of the river. There are stories of people with buckshot through their spinnakers. And another good story was the time I was on Blue Bayou. We were sailing a Laser 28, and we were just sneaking down the Ontario shore between Baskins and Pinny's Point, and it was late at night. If you know the river, the Ontario shore is really deep. You could almost sail your boat up to the edge of it and step off onto land. And we're coming down the shore, and we're inside their rafts. So they have these rafts in front of the house. So we're sailing between the raft and the shore, and there's these people sitting on the shore, and they have a big bonfire going. Sitting at their backs to the water, and they're sitting in lawn chairs along the water. And we're coming along. We're sneaking between the rafts and the shore, and we're coming up on. They had no idea we were there until we're right behind them, where there should be nobody. And we waited till we were right behind them, and we all together went, "Hey, how you doing?" They fell out of their chairs. You know, what do you do when there's light wind and you're racing a long race? You get bored, and these are the things that make you happy. So,
Excellent. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That's great, Bob.